So it seems that Dune Prophecy will be a blend of the broader universe based on Frank Herbert's work and a mix of elements taken from the stories of Sisterhood of Dune, the Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson expanded novel. And it seems like primarily it will be this new original story continuing on from the Sisterhood of Dune novel 30 years after that. And this will be like uncharted territory, I guess, or unexplored territory for this new original story. So we have these new characters, Desmond Hart, that we don't really know too much about, but is very interesting what was revealed. So this was an article by Nerdist, who was there at the New York Comic-Con panel. I think this one specifically focused on Desmond Hart's character. So this article starts out by saying, the Sisterhood, destined to forever reshape the galaxy, will deal with many dangerous enemies. That includes a powerful man who understands just how influential they'll become if no one stands up to them. So that is Travis Fimmell's Desmond Hart, an original character. And the article says, while we know the Sisterhood will go on to influence rulers throughout the Imperium, during this time, they will first have to convince the Emperor to listen to them. Either that, or install one of their own on the throne. Either possibility should make for an exciting first season. It won't be easy to do either, thanks to Travis Fimmell's Desmond Hart. He's an original character who makes his presence felt in this trailer. This teaser suggests he possibly has a great power, as we see him bleeding from his back before visions of someone burning alive. Whether he's just a man or not, the Emperor is listening to him. Will this religious fanatic influence the Bene Gesserit's goals forever? We won't find out until the show debuts. So there's some interesting tidbits here. Nerdist says that he's a religious fanatic. He's trying to convince the Emperor to listen to him about the Bene Gesserit, and that was present in the trailer. He's speaking with Mark Strong's Emperor Carino, and he's saying, I've got my own problems trying to maintain my hold on Arrakis. And Desmond Hart is saying, well, you have bigger problems. There's a war going on that you're unaware of. And his goal is to rid the universe of the Sisterhood, to make them extinct. It's kind of the problem with prequels, because ultimately we know he fails. But how will this affect the Bene Gesserit, I guess, moving forward? That could be intriguing. He obviously knows something about the Bene Gesserit. He knows the threat that they pose. So why does he know that? And it talks about that he has a great power. It's got to be from one of these other factions. It's got to be some sort of specialized training. But obviously he knows the threat that the Bene Gesserit pose to the universe. He knows their powers, I guess. And does Desmond Hart somehow find out that they have the power of the voice, that they have these other great abilities? But how would he know that? I don't know where I found it, but there was some quote where it says there was something that happened to Desmond Hart when he was young. Was that an experience with a Bene Gesserit sister that caused him to know what the deal is? Some have guessed that it's something to do with the Bene Gesserit's plans to create the Kwisatz Haderach. Is it connected to that in some way? Does he have some connection to the Bene Gesserit's powers? That's my speculation too, that he was in some sort of position to know the Bene Gesserit's full power. I like the idea of a Mentat. I think that would be cool. Could it be a possible failed Kwisatz Haderach? Is he one of those pathways that the Bene Gesserit are using as a possibility to create the Kwisatz Haderach? Was he one of those? And is he a failed Kwisatz Haderach? Count Hasimir Fenring, Dune fans will know, was one such example of that. And it was also a character that was very close in the Emperor's council. He was his best friend and advisor and assassin also, so he did the Emperor's dirty work as well. He has a very significant part to play in the novel towards the end, and of course he's married to Lady Fenring. He knows the Bene Gesserit's plans and agenda, but he also is part of it, so he's supporting that as well. He's like a true believer in what they're trying to accomplish, and he's a part of it himself in that regard. So that kind of superseded his attachment and his loyalty to the Emperor. That would be intriguing if this was a failed Kwisatz Haderach situation. And again, the way it is very similar to the relationship between Count Fenring and the Emperor, Shaddam Carino. I wonder if that's what they're trying to kind of foreshadow. And obviously this wasn't something that was in the recent film adaptation. So this could be an interesting way to include a storyline from Frank Herbert's story into the show. Of course, obviously the bigger difference there would be he's trying to get rid of the Bene Gesserit. They made a point to get up close to his eyes. It's got to mean something, a symbol of something. People were thinking, does he have the Tleilaxu eyes? or if he has ties to thinking machines. I think most of the stuff we're going to see of the anti-technology and that movement would be in the past storyline. But it's definitely someone who is aware of the threat that Bene Gesserit pose, which is very dangerous information in itself. And he's got to have some sort of power in his own right to be able to just outright go to war with the Bene Gesserit, knowing all the powers and abilities that they hold. And obviously they say he's got some power. Maybe he's got some sort of Bene Gesserit training or background, or possibly Mentat training. It could be he's resistant to the voice. Maybe he had a glimpse of that. If you know about the voice, you're in trouble. You're not supposed to know how powerful the Bene Gesserit are. This is what makes me think, does he have Mentat training? Because Mentats are formidable as well. Mentats could be aware and maybe are in a better position to resist because their minds are just so powerful themselves. I think with Mentat training, that is something that you have to be conditioned with or instilled with in a very young age. And you don't know if you're going to have the true abilities of a Mentat until you reach adolescence, if you're going to be able to have that conditioning going forward. So maybe there's something there. I do think there's something to a relationship or a link to the Sardaukar based on the imagery that we saw of him walking with the Sardaukar. It's the Emperor's soldiers. It's going to be such a huge deal, though, for the Emperor to remain in power. If his powers in a weakened or fragile state, military strength is going to be the key. His military strength is what basically ensured their continued dominion for thousands of years. So it's interesting that at this point, Emperor Carino, his throne or his rule seems very tenuous. And the Sardaukar are definitely a formidable military force, but I don't think they become the extent of their reputation until Seleucus Secundus is turned into the training ground for them. Kind of in the same spirit of why the Fremen are so formidable. The really hostile environment of Seleucus Secundus and that religious fanaticism is what makes them so deadly. They did say that Desmond Hart had some, or they referred to him as a religious fanatic, and the Sardaukar do have that. They have that warrior religion. It's interesting to theorize over. That's why, like, his character I'm the most intrigued by. What power does he have? The trailer definitely seemed to indicate there's something about him that's more than meets the eye.